what I would say is the earlier someone, from my conversations with him, the earlier someone puts together a structure that's, tightly knit, et cetera, that's compliant, et cetera, the better off they'll be. And I was just watching this he's a little kid. He was younger than you, a little kid. And he was talking about how he built his business. And I don't know, he's probably a billionaire. You never know, right? Or maybe he's poor and just says he's a billionaire, and I'm believing it on TikTok. But anyway, and basically, I think he was a player, by the way. And basically, what he said was he put together his structure as he were a big company first, and then kind of worked backwards. And what happened was the marketplace shifted to his marketplace, his big time structure, et cetera. Plus, he had everything set up when he became big, so it really helped him. And I was thinking about that. If you really think of it, so that kind of makes sense. Wait a minute, this guy was acting big when he was small, but the marketplace saw him as big because of that. Plus, at the same time, when he became big, he was already compliant and he was good to go. And plus, if you think about it, it changes your mindset. I thought that was pretty innovative what he thought. And that was a small little video on TikTok that made me really think. But I think that's something that's a good takeaway. Get your structure in place, because who wants to, who doesn't want to be a big company when they're starting out, right? It's pretty rare where someone's like, I'm not going to be a big company. Well, get your structure in place first and then work backwards. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And really you're speaking that into existence, right? So he put it
Totally.
out there that he was already established, and then it all needed to fall into place afterwards, right?
Totally. He even had
Yeah.
it was funny because he said he had a board of directors. He had a big 800 phone number, big website that it looked like it was a huge company. By the way, he didn't say he was lying. I'm not suggesting that. Viably so. It made it look like it was a big enterprise. And plus, people are more interested in big enterprises. I got to be careful. Maybe not in big companies, but it was a solopreneurs enterprise that looked as though it was something you would want to attract yourself to, not one of those huge companies where he's lying, et cetera. And it made a lot of sense. It really made a lot of sense. Now going back to Bob would be one of those guys, big time attorney who would make sure things are set up correctly. And there's a lot of good attorneys out there. I would say early on, go and talk to an attorney about your structure. Try to get set up correctly first. Plus, down the road, it'll save you some headaches, potential lawsuits, because you don't want to put together a big, some huge cool company, something that comes into a big, huge company and then losing it all because of a lawsuit. I've seen it with my own eyes when people are working their whole life, whatever, 30 years, and then lose it all because of stupid lawsuits.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned this. I saw a video by Andrew Tate the other day, and he was talking
Mm.
about how it's nearly impossible, right, to be a successful small business that's founded today, because back in the 70s, if you got $1 million, you would go start your own small business and you'd provide a service, you'd provide a product, and people would just start coming, and that's how you'd build such an abundance. But if someone gives you $1 million today, go put it in the stock market, right? Invest it with the large corporations, and
Mhm.
that's guaranteed to a certain extent. And that's kind of it's the monopolistic type mentality. I mean, ecosystem that we've built. So I'm curious,
Mm.
picking your brain as a startup, right? As a founder, as an entrepreneur, what would be your advice to entrepreneurs today, right? That are in that same situation Andrew Tate's advising them not to start a business because you're going to get smoked out by all of the big
Mm.
corporations. What
Mm.
would be your advice for them?
If you want to do it, do it.
Hmm.
As Nike says, just do it. Um, if you've got the conviction, and you might as well give it a shot. That's what I would say. I get what he's saying. It is hard. It's very hard. Being an entrepreneur, man, it seems great because you become a billionaire or whatever, right? But it's hard. It really is hard. It takes work. People don't like to talk about, but at the same time, there's a lot of gratification, a lot of wealth that can come from it. I would say give it a shot. Just do it, just as Nike says. Number one. By the way, number two, you mentioned Kiyosaki and Tate. Man, you hang out with some wild people, which is which is wild because your persona. I've seen you. I've known you for a while. It's a really, really cool personality, cool your strategy, the things you think about. People should gravitate towards you if you're a 18-year-old, 25-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old. you're one of those personalities people should gravitate towards and listen to because you got a lot of good stuff, man. And you really do. It's just funny. You're listening to Tate and Kiyosaki, some of the wilder guys on that
Yeah.
spectrum.
Well, I appreciate you, Kenner. And I think you need to hear both, right? You need to have an angel and a devil on your shoulder, right? You need to
Yeah.
hear both sides. So I'll be that angel on your shoulder, bringing you to true wealth, right? And I'll bring you the truth, and we can have anyone else speaking to you, giving you some other perspectives,
There you
right?
go. There you go.
Yeah, but this is amazing, Kenner. So, it's looking at, I mean, this is kind of going around the same questioning. Looking at the modern day, what sort of industries are you most excited about right now from an investment perspective? And what do you think has the most growth? Obviously, you're building out all the AI and you're building out the media, so you're executing on a certain regard. But in an
Yeah.
investment perspective, what do you think entrepreneurs should pursue today?
Invest in themselves, number one. Number 2, I would say, and this is for entertainment purposes, make sure you talk to your advisor, either tax advisor, investment advisor, lawyer, etcetera. Um, I would say quantum computing. I'm a big believer in quantum computing. I think it's gonna really, really revolution it makes AI look like it's a joke, like you're, carving on stone tablets. I think people have gotta look towards the final technology, and that's quantum computing. I think there's a few different, companies, I'm gonna be neutral, I'm not gonna mention them, where people should look at if they really wanna make real net worth because that's the final frontier of a stock, if you will, of a company, et cetera.
Mhm. Okay, that's incredible. Yeah. So, because of all the experience that you've gained, right? Because you've been doing this for some time and you've really committed to, I mean, exponential growth, you've definitely had to balance family,
Mm.
entrepreneurship, and then a lot of high intensity, right? What anchors you personally, and how could you still be there for your family and right and those that you needed to be there for amidst all of the high intensity?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Wow, man, these questions. Uh, I'd say my wife, she's a stud. She actually runs the family. She wears the pants in the family. My wife. Um,
Cheers. That makes two of us, man.
yeah, I get it. If she were here, she'd be like totally true. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Um, and then this I followed. Well, actually, I got into business based on your co-author, Sharon Lecter. After her, I started doing a bunch of reading, a bunch of research on this guy named the strategic coach guy. I won't go into the specifics, but his name's Dan Sullivan. Anyway, he basically taught the idea of work life balance, taught me the work life balance idea. Um, I don't want to be one who's working all the time per se. Although now that I'm doing AI, I'm loving it. I'm working. I've been semi-retired for years, but now I'm coming back to work because I'm loving AI, loving quantum computing. But what I would say is I think that the work-life balance is really, really important, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that. And there's ways you could, do the work-life balance thing. For me, it's, taking care of the bigger projects, having other people or other technology do the smaller projects, and that's helped me a lot. Because otherwise, I'd be one of those guys who all my life would have been working 24 hours a day. And so that's I won't say the key to my success because I don't consider myself successful per se, but I think that the work-life balance with the help of, strategic coach and other systems like that, all coupled with, your co-author Sharon Lecter's ideas have, helped me tremendously.
Mhm. And so what if you wouldn't mind sharing, what type of systems and ideas did Sharon help you, to really establish your brand, and to take off and get
Mm.
established to where the Kenner French that we know today?
Yeah. Whoa, dude, unbelievable your questions. So, uh, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad totally changed my life. Again, you're co-author of your book, um, Sharon Lecter. It changed my life because I was raised the old philosophy, work for 20, 30 years, get the the cool gold watch in retirement, the rocking chair. But, you know, real estate actually is so efficient as an investment. And I learned that from that book, Passive Income, right? And that was boom, it was like a light bulb went off. Number 1. Then number 2, what else did she teach me in effect? I've gotten to know her now. She's a podcast partner, which is unbelievable. The lady who got me into entrepreneurship is now my podcast partner, blows me away. Anyway, what I would say is she taught me that, intellectual property is a big thing. Her husband, I think Michael, is a IP attorney, big time IP attorney. So there's 2 things that I've learned from her, 2 big things. Passive income slash real estate, and then intellectual property. at the end of the day, it's your what really matters as a business is the brand. You can sell it down the road, right? And so the intellectual property is very, very important, much more so than I ever expected, especially in today's world of brands coming and going, et cetera. So I think people have to, that's one big thing people have to think about when building their own personal brand or a company brand, is that that is the first and foremost thing that that the public sees and hears is your brand, your IP. You got to make sure that you build that out, scale that out to the extent possible. And one way of doing it for us now is this media arm. You know, it's that's going to help us to finally, not finally, but kind of quantify and scale our brand even more so than it has been.
Yeah, absolutely. And media right now is that is the best way to reach, right, to reach the youth, right? To reach an audience that, I mean, we all have to drive to the grocery store, we're all driving to school, we're all driving to church, we're all driving everywhere. And so it's nice to listen to some podcasts, right? And be able to absorb. And that's the number one important advice that I would have for any aspiring entrepreneur is to never waste your time, right? If you have moments in the day where you're absorbing content, and that content should be uplifting, right? That content should move you forward. So,
Mhm.
how is your media company now that you're running this? How are you guys going to really focus in house to be able to deliver that type of unique media that these entrepreneurs need to hear in order to scale?
The AI, we have a AI, it's called head of entertainment AI. And that model, that specific little model is going to be the one who's going to figure that out, that AI employee. But what I would say is my charge or my prompt, as they call it, my prompt for that little AI employee is to make it so an entrepreneur keeps their eyes and ears on that website. Now, why is that? Because I believe attention is going to be even more important with the advent of AI, et cetera. So I believe people want to see people and not AI, at least to a certain extent. So I think that the goal of that head of entertainment, that AI bot, some people would call it, or AI employees we call it, that their sole goal is to keep people on the website and interested in the content. So that's the best way to answer that.
Yeah, and I mean, in all honesty, I mean, it's always important to hear genuine conversations like this, right? Because
Totally.
there's so much AI everywhere. There's so much content that sometimes people don't know how to decipher between a real conversation, a real person, and AI now because AI's, I mean, scaled so largely. So it's really important to be able to have these types of relationships, and that is true wealth, right? At the beginning of this podcast, we hear that true wealth is
Mhm.
established in real assets and real relationships, which is what we're doing together, Kenner. So on that note, how would you and I've discussed it a lot on this podcast already, but how would you personally define true wealth?
Well, you've changed, you gave me a good idea, you know what I mean? Well, I say time, I say freedom, which equals time. But what you kind of convinced me in the middle of this is that you got to remember you got to have a legacy, and helping other people, and which makes me think, you can't just think about my own time, my own freedom as an example. I got to remember that I got to see. This shows you how smart you are for a little kid. It's unbelievable, man. It's the impact of those around me. I should incorporate that a little bit more so than just saying freedom of time as an example is my definition, because it's I mean, I don't want to leave this earth without it not being better than when I was on it. And that brings into, into account what you were talking about as far as helping those around you, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty good response.
That's incredible. Well, yeah, thanks for saying that. And this is it, Kenner. You nailed it, right? So true wealth beyond dollars, the new currency of legacy, right?
Yeah.
Legacy is that number one. It's gained through time freedom, and time freedom, allows us to build the legacy. But legacy is absolutely the new form of our currency if we're
So,
going
yeah.
to truly build, true wealth for everyone. So, Kenner, thank you for joining us today. What is the best way for my audience to find you?
They can go to our website, vastsolutionsgroup.com. That's our company website where you're going to do tax, finance, and artificial intelligence to help entrepreneurs. Or they could go to rkennerfrench.com. Have a cool little big picture of me, big, and I look better in the picture because it's all AI. I look really, really cool. And this is me, sadly. Uh, and or of course they can, if they want, they can order the book, modernmillions.ai. Go to that website, or of course Amazon, any of the above. And this has been a pleasure. I love getting to know you. You're a total stud. I think you're going to be the future. You're going to be like the future Sharon Lecter. Robert Kiyosaki, maybe with a cleaner mouth. I mean, you are the future of this generation, of your generation. I really believe that as far as finance, as far as well, legacy building goes. I think I'm excited to see what happens with you.
Well, I really appreciate that, Kenner. It's such an honor to have you on my show. And yeah, for all of you listening, remember to go look out for Kenner's information. He's a very wise man. So that's the wisdom that you can gain
Wise.
from someone like Kenner. And
I
I
like
really
that. Someone
appreciate
called
you
me
being with us.
wise.
Hey, there we go. Well, and for all of you listening today, thank you for tuning in to the True Wealth podcast. And just remember that tomorrow is never promised. So I encourage you to go make the most of today. Thank you, Kenner.